It was a cold, rain-soaked evening when, on a wild whim and with nothing more than a flicker of doubt, I ordered a DNA test kit. I expected a curious glimpse into my own heritage, a fun diversion on a restless night. Instead, I received the results that exposed a betrayal so deep it ripped the very fabric of our shared life apart. In that instant, the woman I loved, my wife, my partner, was revealed as a stranger. The truth burned with the intensity of 1,000 suns, and I knew my life would never be the same again. For years, I had trusted her implicitly. Our marriage had always seemed to me a fortress of commitment and quiet love, a sanctuary where promises were made with gentle smiles and whispered assurances. We built a life together that, on the surface, was idyllic, shared routines, warm family dinners, and the kind of laughter that filled our home with a soft, comforting glow. I believed that our bond was unbreakable, that the small secrets we sometimes kept for the sake of personal space were just that, harmless little gaps in an otherwise unblemished union. I never suspected that beneath her calm exterior, there lay a hidden world, one that was carefully concealed and meticulously maintained away from my eyes. It all began innocently enough. I had always been fascinated by the idea of genetic heritage, a quirky interest that led me to purchase a DNA test kit on a whim. I thought it might reveal something interesting about my ancestry, a fun piece of trivia to share with friends at a dinner party. The kit arrived in a plain box, its contents arranged in neat, sterile compartments. Following the instructions with mild curiosity, I provided a small saliva sample and sent it off, not giving it a second thought. Days turned into a week, and life carried on its routine until the fateful envelope arrived. I tore it open with the expectation of discovering a colorful map of my origins. Instead, my eyes fell upon a page that made my heart skip a beat, an unexpected sidebar labeled Paternity Verification. At first, I thought it must be a printing error. But as I scanned the detailed results, my blood ran cold. The report, brimming with statistical data and forensic precision, indicated that my genetic markers did not match those of the children I had raised as my own. A chill coursed through my veins as I realized that my wife had been hiding a secret that went far beyond the simple omission of truth. She had been living a double life. I sat down at the edge of our unmade bed, the silence around me now oppressive. Every tender memory, the way she laughed softly when we watched old movies, the lingering looks during quiet dinners, suddenly felt like a carefully rehearsed performance meant to hide something sinister. The DNA test was indisputable. The children I had believed to be mine were not genetically mine at all. Every cell in my body screamed betrayal, and in that moment, the life I thought I knew began to unravel. My mind raced as I recalled the countless times I had wondered about her unexplained absences, the hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, and the secretive glances she'd cast my way when she thought I wasn't looking. Had I been so blind? Every minor detail, once dismissed as an innocent quirk of modern life, now coalesced into a damning portrait of deceit. I began to realize that my marriage, which I had assumed was built on an unshakable foundation of trust, was instead a house of cards, ready to collapse under the weight of hidden truths. Tears blurred my vision as I struggled to comprehend the enormity of the betrayal. The report, clinical and unfeeling, was a stark reminder that nothing in our life together was as it seemed. I felt an unbearable mix of grief, anger, and humiliation, emotions that threatened to overwhelm me completely. Yet, even as my heart broke, a small, defiant ember began to glow inside me. I knew that I could not allow this revelation to destroy me. I had to find a way to reclaim my dignity, to seek the truth behind the secrets that had been kept from me, and to rebuild my life on my own terms. In that moment of shattering clarity, I made a silent vow. I would not be a passive victim of deception. I would confront this betrayal head-on, no matter how painful the journey. I gathered the test results and every scrap of evidence that I could salvage from the aftermath, emails, text messages, and even photographs that now took on a cruel new meaning. I carefully documented every detail in a journal, each word a testament to the truth I had uncovered and a promise that I would no longer live in ignorance. As the storm of emotions raged within me, I felt a mix of sorrow for the life that was lost and a burgeoning resolve to take control of my own destiny. I knew that the path ahead would be steep and fraught with painful decisions, but I was determined to use this betrayal as the catalyst for a profound transformation, a chance to rebuild my identity and create a future defined not by lies, but by the unyielding power of truth and self-respect. That fateful night, as I stared blankly at the glowing screen of my computer, I knew that I had reached a crossroads. I could either let this revelation shatter my world, or I could harness the pain to fuel my rebirth. The decision was not made in haste. It was the culmination of months of silent doubts, dismissed warnings, and a slow, creeping realization that everything I had believed in was a carefully constructed illusion. With a deep, shuddering breath, I closed my eyes and allowed the full force of that truth to sink in. I would find the answers I desperately sought, and I would confront the hidden life that had been concealed in darkness. In the coming days, I would embark on a journey of painful introspection, relentless investigation, and ultimately, a confrontation that would irrevocably alter the course of my life. I would question every whispered secret, every late-night absence, and every unexplained behavior. And though the road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, I felt an inner strength begin to emerge from the wreckage of betrayal, a strength born from the realization that the truth, however devastating, was the only path to reclaiming my self-worth. Now, as I sit here with the early morning light filtering through the window, the weight of that life-changing discovery still pressing upon me, I make my vow. I will uncover every hidden secret, confront every lie, and rebuild my life on the solid foundation of truth and honesty. The journey will be long, the pain may never fully fade, but I am resolved to rise from the ashes of deceit and reclaim the life that is rightfully mine. In the days following that fateful discovery, I found myself caught in a relentless maelstrom of shock, anger, and a deep, gnawing sorrow. Every waking moment was punctuated by the images of my wife's secret online life, posts filled with playful banter, intimate snapshots from exclusive gatherings, and cryptic messages that hinted at a world I had never known. I spent hours scrolling through the hidden account on her phone, each new post a jagged reminder that the person I believed I knew was leading a double life. The betrayal was raw and overwhelming, and every notification that lit up the screen deepened the void in my chest. I felt as if the very foundation of our marriage had been built on a lie that was now exploding into an unmanageable, public spectacle. I withdrew into myself, seeking refuge in the silence of our home as I tried to process the avalanche of evidence. The comfortable routine we once shared had become an echo of happier times, now overlaid with a persistent, haunting chorus of deceit. I found myself pacing the living room, replaying every moment in my head when she'd furtively checked her phone, when she'd given me a smile that didn't reach her eyes, when she'd slipped away for private moments that I'd foolishly dismissed. Every memory, every detail that I had ignored, now converged into an undeniable truth. She had been living a secret life online, a life where my presence was not wanted or included. Desperate for answers and clarity, I began to document everything. I printed out screenshots of posts and messages, saved every date and timestamp, and compiled them meticulously into a folder that I treated as both my evidence and my personal manifesto against the betrayal. In the quiet darkness of my study, lit only by the pale glow of a desk lamp, I wrote down every painful detail. My journal became a confessional where I spilled my anger, my disbelief, and my heartache. I questioned how I could have been so blind, how could I have trusted someone who now seemed a stranger? With each word I wrote, I felt the raw sting of betrayal mixing with a burgeoning determination. I would no longer allow this deception to dictate the course of my life. The turning point came unexpectedly one late afternoon when I received a text message from an old friend, Dana, who had noticed my recent absence from our usual social gatherings. "Are you okay?" her message read. It was a simple question, but it pierced through the fog of my despair. For the first time in days, I allowed myself a moment of vulnerability as I replied, "Not really. I need to talk." Within minutes, Dana called, and her steady, compassionate voice provided a lifeline. As I recounted the discovery of the secret social media account, I could hear her shock and sorrow on the other end of the line. "You deserve the truth, no matter how painful," she said. "You owe it to yourself to confront this head-on." Her words, though gentle, ignited a spark of resolve within me. If I was to move forward, I needed to reclaim my voice and my dignity, and that meant confronting the lies directly. In the following days, I rehearsed the confrontation relentlessly. I stood before the mirror in our dim hallway, my reflection marked by tear-streaked cheeks and a set jaw that spoke of determination. I practiced my opening words over and over. "I found your secret account. I know what you've been doing. I deserve to know the truth." The questions, each one sharper than the last, echoed in my mind. I prepared for every possible reaction, denial, anger, or even an outburst of remorse, and steeled myself for the emotional maelstrom that was inevitable. The day I'd chosen for the confrontation arrived with an oppressive heaviness in the air. I sent her a terse message: "We need to talk. Now." I knew that the inevitable showdown could no longer be delayed. That evening, I waited in our living room, the evidence folder arranged neatly on the coffee table as if it were a silent witness to the unraveling of our shared life. Every minute stretched out interminably, my heart pounding in anticipation and dread. The house, once a symbol of our warmth and togetherness, now felt cold and unwelcoming, as if it were bracing itself for the coming storm. At last, the front door creaked open and she stepped into the room. For a moment, the space between us was filled with a heavy, stifling silence, the kind that speaks of unsaid words and a truth too painful to confront. Her eyes, normally so bright and full of life, were now clouded with uncertainty and a hint of guilt. I stood up, my hands trembling but my voice steady. "We need to talk," I said, my tone low and controlled despite the tumult within. I gestured for her to sit, and once she did, I slid the evidence folder toward her. "I've been keeping track of everything," I began, my voice firm. "The dates, the posts, the messages. I know about the secret account, and I know what you've been hiding." I paused, watching her face twist with shock and an attempt at denial. "Explain this," I demanded, laying my hand flat on the first printed screenshot. "Why would you create a life online without me? What are you really seeking?" Her silence was the first response, a heavy, painful silence that spoke volumes. I could see her eyes darting away, as if searching for an escape from the truth I was forcing upon her. Finally, her voice emerged, shaky and filled with remorse. I never meant for you to find out this way," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the floor. "It started as just a way to have an outlet. I felt stifled, and I needed to breathe, away from everything." Her words, though halting and poorly formed, did little to ease the sting of the betrayal. Instead, they fanned the flames of my anguish. "An outlet," I repeated, my voice rising with every word. "Is that what you call it? Is that all it was, a simple outlet, something harmless?" I felt the bile rising in my throat as I recalled the countless nights of isolation, the times I had noticed her secretive behavior and dismissed it as unimportant. "I trusted you," I continued, the hurt in my voice unmistakable. "I believed in us. But this secret life you've led, it's not an outlet. It's a betrayal. It's a lie." I slammed my hand against the coffee table, the sound echoing in the tense silence that enveloped us. The room was thick with emotion, her eyes filled with tears, mine glistening with a mix of fury and sorrow. For a long moment, we sat there, the only sound the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. I saw in her face the terror of being exposed, the shame of a hidden world laid bare before me. "Tell me the truth," I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper but laced with unyielding determination. "I need to know when it started. I need to know who you were talking to. I need to understand why you lied to me every day." Every word was a desperate plea for clarity, a demand to unearth the full extent of the deception that had ripped our life apart. Her answers came slowly, brokenly, each confession a dagger in my already shattered heart. She admitted that the account had started as a harmless distraction during a period when she felt overwhelmed by the monotony of our routine. "I was lonely," she said, her voice trembling, "and I wanted to feel something different, something exciting." The simplicity of her explanation was both maddening and heartbreaking. It didn't justify the betrayal, but it painted a picture of a woman desperate for validation, a validation I had never given her. As she spoke, I felt the rage within me simmer and then burst forth in a torrent of pain. Every word confirmed the worst of my fears. The love I thought we shared had been a carefully constructed illusion, a life built on secrets and half-truths. The confrontation escalated as the intensity of our emotions reached a fever pitch. I recalled every subtle sign I had ignored, every time she had looked away when I asked about her day, every secretive smile, every moment of evasiveness. "How could you?" I cried out, my voice cracking with grief. "How could you betray me like this?" The accusation hung in the air, heavy and inescapable, as if it were the only truth that mattered now. In that moment, I realized that our marriage was irreparably broken, that the trust one had once held so dearly was lost in a maze of deceit. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to offer more explanations, but I could see that the more she spoke, the deeper the wound. Her whispered apologies, her feeble attempts to justify her actions, all of it only confirmed that the facade of our life together had crumbled beyond repair. I felt an overwhelming mix of sorrow and vindication, a bittersweet release that the truth was finally out, even if it came at the cost of our shared past. After what felt like hours of raw, painful conversation, the tension finally began to ebb. The confrontation left us both drained, the air heavy with the residue of shattered dreams and broken promises. I sat alone for a long while after she left the room, the silence punctuated only by the slow ticking of the clock and the quiet rustle of the evidence I had laid out. I knew that the path ahead would be one of difficult choices and painful healing, but in that quiet aftermath, I also felt a glimmer of determination emerging from the wreckage of our love. I began to reflect on what had transpired, a cascade of revelations that had torn through the very fabric of my identity. Every question I had asked, every tear that had fallen, was a step toward reclaiming the truth and, ultimately, rebuilding my life. I realized that while I could never undo the betrayal, I could choose to redefine myself. I was no longer the man who had lived in blissful ignorance. I was a man who had been forced to confront the darkest truths of his marriage, and in doing so, I had discovered a strength I never knew existed. That night, as I sat with the folder of evidence and the fragments of our conversation echoing in my mind, I made a silent vow to myself: I would not let this betrayal break me. I would gather every shred of dignity left in my heart and rebuild a future defined by honesty and self-respect. The journey ahead was uncertain, and the road to healing would be long and arduous. Yet, in that moment of painful clarity, I felt a spark, a promise that from the ashes of deceit, a new self could emerge, stronger and more resolute than before. I left the confrontation that evening with a heavy heart, knowing that the truth had set me free even as it shattered the illusions of our past. As I walked through the empty hallways of our home, the images of that night replayed in my mind like a solemn dirge. I knew that I would have to face the long process of disentangling our lives, both legally and emotionally, but I also understood that I was finally reclaiming control over my own destiny. The evidence, once hidden and secret, had become my beacon of truth, a reminder that while betrayal may wound, it cannot destroy the spirit that dares to rise again. And so, with the lingering echoes of that painful confrontation still resonating within me, I stepped forward into the night, determined to let the truth guide me toward a future where I was no longer defined by lies. I would seek the closure I needed, rebuild my identity piece by piece, and ultimately, forge a new path, one that honored my worth and celebrated the unyielding strength of a man who refused to be defeated by betrayal. I awoke the next morning with a profound emptiness, a silence so deep it seemed to echo the shattered pieces of my heart. The raw, unfiltered recordings from my car still played relentlessly in my mind, each whisper and hushed laugh a cruel reminder of the betrayal that had ripped through the very fabric of our life. That night had been the climax of a long, agonizing journey, a journey of suspicion, secret evidence, and an eventual confrontation that left me raw and exposed. Yet now, in the quiet vulnerability of early light, I realized that this moment was not merely an end, but the beginning of a rebirth. 4 days after the confrontation, I wandered through the corridors of our home as if it were a mausoleum of memories once cherished. Every photograph, every familiar object, now bore the heavy imprint of deceit. I could still hear the echoes of our laughter, the soft murmur of our shared conversations during long drives, and now, each sound felt like a ghost of the love we had lost. The evidence was undeniable, and while the pain was searing, it forced me to confront a truth I had long refused to acknowledge. The woman I had trusted was living a double life, and the voice I had once adored had been speaking secrets to someone else, far away from my presence. I spent countless sleepless nights in solitude, pouring out my anguish into a battered journal. Every tear-stained line was a testament to the betrayal that had turned my world upside down. I wrote about the day I discovered the recorder's damning evidence, about the hushed conversations I never wanted to hear and the way each word chipped away at my belief in our marriage. With every stroke of my pen, I felt both the agony of loss and a tentative stirring of resolve. I questioned how I had been so blind, how my love had been manipulated so completely, and, most painfully, how I could possibly move forward. Yet, amid the despair, a slow ember of determination began to glow. I realized that if I continued to dwell on the pain, I would be imprisoned by it forever. I needed to reclaim my identity, piece by piece, and build a future defined not by lies, but by my own truth. That evening, with the evidence meticulously compiled in a folder and my heart heavy with raw memories, I took a decisive step. I met with my lawyer in a sterile, quiet office where every document I signed felt like a small act of liberation. The legal process of ending our marriage was grueling and filled with moments that forced me to confront the reality of a shared past now irretrievably tainted by deception. Yet, with each signature, I felt a growing sense of release. I was severing the bonds of a life built on half-truths, opening the door to a future that, while uncertain, was undeniably mine to shape. Even as the legalities unfolded, I knew that the most important battle lay within me. I sought the guidance of a compassionate therapist, Dr. Elena Vega, whose gentle wisdom helped me navigate the labyrinth of betrayal and loss. Healing isn't about erasing what happened, she told me one rainy afternoon, but about integrating your pain into the story of your strength. Your scars are not a mark of failure, they are a testament to your resilience. Her words, soft yet firm, began to stitch together the torn edges of my self-worth. Slowly, I learned that while the betrayal would forever be a part of my past, it no longer had to dictate my future. I began to reconnect with the person I once was, the man who believed in love and honesty without reservation. I took long walks in the crisp morning air, letting the steady rhythm of my footsteps ground me in the present. I returned to old hobbies, playing the guitar, reading books that had once sparked my imagination, even trying my hand at painting abstract landscapes that captured the tumult of my emotions. Each small act of self-care was a silent rebellion against the pain, a step toward rebuilding my identity from the ruins of betrayal. In the solitude of these moments, I also found unexpected strength in sharing my story. I started a private blog, where I poured out the unvarnished truth of my experience. The vulnerability of those words, raw and unfiltered, resonated with strangers who had faced similar wounds. Their messages of solidarity became a chorus that reminded me I was not alone. Through their shared experiences, I discovered that while betrayal can wound deeply, it can also be a crucible for transformation, an opportunity to rise anew, stronger and more self-assured. One autumn day, I took a solitary trip to a remote mountain retreat, a quiet haven far removed from the painful memories of our home. There, amidst the rugged peaks and the serene silence of nature, I allowed myself the luxury of reflection. I hiked along winding trails and sat by a glacial stream, watching as the golden light of the setting sun danced on the snow. In that untouched wilderness, the chaos of my past seemed to melt away, replaced by the promise of a vast, open future. The mountains, ancient and unyielding, taught me that even the deepest scars can heal with time and perseverance. I made a silent vow on that high, lonely ridge: I would not let the betrayal define me. Instead, I would use it as the foundation to build a new life, one grounded in authenticity, strength, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. Returning home from that retreat, I felt a renewed clarity. I began setting tangible goals for my future. I enrolled in courses to expand my skills, sought new professional opportunities, and even started a side project that ignited a long-dormant passion for writing fiction. Every small achievement was a brick laid in the foundation of a new self, proof that I was more than the sum of my heartbreak. Slowly, I began to see that the pain of betrayal, while it had left deep scars, had also paved the way for a rebirth. I was no longer the man who had naively trusted without question. I was a man forged in the fires of deception, emerging with a clear vision for his own destiny. I continued to attend therapy, where I learned that the process of healing is non-linear and sometimes messy. There were days when the memories would surge back with crushing force, a familiar scent, a song on the radio, a casual remark in conversation, and for a moment, I would be overwhelmed by the raw grief. But each time, I reminded myself of the promise I had made, that I would not be defined by the lies of my past. With every setback, I redoubled my efforts to rebuild, drawing on the support of friends, the wisdom of my therapist, and the quiet strength I discovered in my own perseverance. Gradually, I began to redefine my relationships. I reached out to old friends who had always seen the real me, the man behind the facade of marital bliss, and re-established connections that I had once taken for granted. Their unwavering support and gentle reminders of my worth helped me realize that true love and friendship are not contingent on the perfect veneer of a relationship but on the honesty and integrity of one's character. I learned to trust again, albeit cautiously, and to open my heart to the possibility of new, genuine connections, ones that were built on mutual respect and shared truths. At work, I embraced new challenges with an energy that was both unexpected and exhilarating. I pitched innovative ideas, volunteered for leadership roles, and allowed myself to be recognized for my talents and creativity. The professional accolades, while secondary to my personal healing, served as affirmations that I was capable of rising above the pain. My colleagues began to notice a change, a quiet confidence, a steadiness in my voice, and an air of resilience that was unmistakable. With every small success, I reclaimed a piece of the self I had thought lost forever. In the final stages of my transformation, I decided to share my journey with a wider audience. I held a small, intimate gathering at my new apartment, an event that marked both a farewell to the old life and a celebration of the new beginning. Friends and family gathered, and I spoke openly about the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the arduous process of rebuilding my identity. I told my story not with bitterness, but with the sober resolve of someone who had learned that truth, however painful, is the only foundation upon which a meaningful life can be built. The room was silent as I spoke, each word a testament to the struggles I had endured and the strength I had discovered. In that moment, I felt a profound connection to everyone present, a shared understanding that while love can sometimes lead to deep wounds, it also offers the possibility of healing and renewal. Now, as I sit at my desk and write these words, I feel a serene determination fill me. The scars of betrayal remain, etched into my soul like a map of battles fought and survived, but they are no longer symbols of defeat. They are emblems of resilience, a reminder that even when trust is shattered, the human spirit has an uncanny ability to rise, to rebuild, and to create a future that is unmistakably its own. I have come to understand that the truth, as devastating as it can be, is also liberating. The pain of my wife's secret life, the hidden diary entries, and the long-forgotten messages have all been threads in the tapestry of my rebirth. I now stand at the threshold of a future defined not by the lies of my past, but by the clarity and strength I have forged in its aftermath. I have reclaimed my identity, restored my self-respect, and opened my heart to the possibility of a new love, one built on honesty, mutual respect, and the unbreakable bond of trust. As the sun rises and casts a warm, golden glow over the horizon, I take a deep breath and step forward into this new chapter. I know that challenges lie ahead, moments when the ghosts of betrayal might resurface, when the pain might threaten to overwhelm me once more. But I also know that I have the strength to meet those challenges head-on. I have learned that healing is not a destination, but a journey that continues to unfold with each new day, each new triumph, and each new hope. With every step I take, I honor the past while embracing the future. I choose to live a life where every decision is guided by the lessons of betrayal and the wisdom of survival. I vow never to allow deception to steal my joy or diminish my worth. Instead, I will let the scars remind me of the battles I have fought, and let each sunrise be a symbol of the endless possibility that lies ahead. Today, I stand as a testament to the unyielding power of truth, a man who has faced the darkest aspects of betrayal and emerged with a renewed sense of purpose. I am no longer defined by the pain of that fateful discovery, but by the strength I have cultivated in its wake. I am ready to rebuild my world, to write a new chapter filled with honest love, unwavering respect, and the promise of a future that I will shape with my own hands.